Guys, so we're back with a pretty cool topic today, and this is something that's usually on people's minds, and that is how fast can you lose weight? How fast can you lose fat? What's a good rate of weight loss, centimeter loss, etc. So I'm going to go through basically what you should be achieving most weeks in your program. Let me fix my watch, it's flying around in the background there. So very simply, the more overweight that you are, the more aggressive you can go with your calorie deficit. So the biggest concern with most people is that if you're going to be losing fat, you're going to be losing muscle. And it doesn't have to be the case. So as a blanket statement, ideally, everyone should be weight training and you should be getting enough total protein to support your weight training needs and maintain muscle mass. Now, how fast can you lose weight? As a general guideline, for most people, you're looking at somewhere between 0.5 to 1% of your body weight per week. Now, guys are relatively simple. We can stay within that range pretty tightly. Women, it's a little bit more complicated just because of things like your menstrual cycle, fluctuations in hormones, etc. It can play havoc on the scale numbers. But somewhere in the range of 0.5 to 1% of your body weight per week. So if you're 100 kilos and you're losing between that 0.5 to 1% per week, you're looking at about a 500 gram to 1 kilogram loss per week. Now, if you're 100 kilos, you can lose faster than that, but this is just a general idea. If you were 50 kilos, right, and you are trying to lose weight, and your friend who's 100 kilos is losing a kilo per week, and you're like, well, I want to lose a kilo per week. Too fast, right? Because it's relative to your body weight. So for someone who's 50 kilos, you're looking at losing somewhere in the range of 250 grams to maximum a half a kilo per week. And that's just because there's just not much of you, just a much smaller person. So 0.5 to 1% is the perfect weight loss range. Now, as you get leaner, that number does get smaller. So the closer to like 10% as a male you are, you actually want to lose a bit more on the slower side, around that 0.5% per week. The closer you are to 17 to 20% as a female, the closer to that 0.5% you want to lose, because you just don't have as much body fat to cover the deficit. And then if you're losing at a rate that's too high, depending on your body fat percentage, which I'll get to in a moment, you are at much more risk of losing muscle. So yes, if you lose some muscle, if you go back to maintenance in your weight training, you're going to gain that back. So don't stress too much. But in any dieting phase, we're always trying to maximize muscle retention. So keeping muscle, building muscle potentially, depending on the training age, and maximizing fat loss. So the only thing we're really trying to lose is fat off the body. Now, how aggressive you go with your deficit is going to depend on how fat you are. So, if you are morbidly obese, let's say you've got 20, 30, 40 kilos to lose, you could literally eat next to no food. As long as you get enough protein and you're weight training, you most likely aren't going to lose any lean mass. And that's because how aggressive you go with your calories, or how low in calories you go, is dictated by the body fat percent. So how much body fat you carry. The more body fat you carry, the more fat is available to be dumped into your bloodstream to be used as an energy source. Okay. So if someone is 10% body fat and they're on a very aggressive diet, 50% of their maintenance calories, you will lose muscle. 100%, because there's not enough fat available to be released into your bloodstream at a consistent rate for you to burn only fat. Whereas if you've got 50 kilos to lose, you could eat nothing at all. I'm not saying you should do that. Probably don't do that, but you basically could fast completely. And there's actually a really good study on this by a guy called Angus Burbury. And it talks about a guy who fasted for about a year with medical supervision, took some basic supplements, some yeast and stuff like that. Didn't eat food, basically calories for an entire year. And then once he finished, he went back to his maintenance calories and maintained his weight. You can Google that, true, it's crazy. So you can get away with low calories. Now, just because you can go very low in calories, especially if you're overweight, doesn't necessarily mean that you should go very low in calories, right? It's really going to come down to what can you stick to. So, as a general guide, for most people, a calorie deficit somewhere in the range of 500 up to 1,000 calories per day is usually going to be the sweet spot. There's no exact magical number. And the calories that you're eating should be adjusted based on your rate of weight loss. So let's say over the course of 3 weeks, if you're not getting the results you should be expecting, let's say you're only on about, 0.3% weight loss per week, measurements are okay. They're slowly going down over time, but nothing crazy. Then you can go lower in calories. You can go lower in calories, you can do more activity, or you can do both. So you can increase your steps, you can decrease food, or you can increase steps and decrease food at the same time. How effective cardio is for fat loss, I personally don't like it. I'm going to do another video on that in terms of like how many calories you burn. Is it worth your time? It all depends on how low in calories you can get away with, your personal satiety levels, etc. Now, the other thing that you want to keep into consideration or take into consideration is if you're new to weight training, are you also gaining muscle mass? Therefore, the scale isn't going down as fast, but are your measurements going down? This is massive in my programs. So whenever I have a consultation with someone and they're like, Shannon, help me lose 10 kilos. I want to be 10 kilos lighter. What they're really saying is, Shannon, I want to be physically a smaller person. I want to go from where I am now and I want to be the size of someone who's about 10 kilos lighter. So I always emphasize measurement losses over scale weight losses. If I went into a client's program and their measurements went down, specifically around the waist for most people, small waist for women, belly button waist for men, depending on the woman, again, women store fat differently compared to men. Men don't really have to worry too much about it. It's just belly button waist. Women's body fat distribution can vary from woman to woman, but generally speaking, small waist for women, low belly button waist for men. If that goes down, done. Keep doing what you're doing, rinse and repeat. If it ain't broke, do not fix it. Just keep going as you are. Even if the scale was the same, even if the scale went up, I do not care. Fun fact, I would rather you be heavier than you are right now and have a 10 centimeters smaller waist. Crazy, I know, but you cannot physically lose fat off your body unless the tape measurement is going around you tighter. So, does that make weight not important? Of course not. If you need to lose 10 kilos, you're probably eventually going to lose about 10 kilos on the scale. Now, a cool little fact, for every kilogram that you drop, that correlates very closely with about a 1 centimeter drop around your waist. Small waist for women, belly button waist for men. So, when I assess measurements, I always look at measurements first. If that's down, amazing. I'll check the weight, see if it's down. Now, sometimes the body doesn't always go down exactly the way we want it to. So sometimes you'll check your weekly measurements and the measurements didn't go down, but you hit a brand new all-time low weight. That's a fantastic indication that you're still heading in the right direction. Do not change anything. Keep going as you are. If you are losing centimeters, but your weight doesn't go down, even better, because physically you're a smaller person. But more often than not, when the centimeters go down, usually the weight goes down as well. And it slightly varies. Sometimes you'll lose off the small waist, sometimes you won't. Sometimes there'll be hips and thighs for women, etc. Right? So going back to the main point of the video is the rate of weight loss. So what I advise my clients is weigh yourself daily, take an average, compare those averages week to week. I have all of this built within my spreadsheets and my programs when I work with clients. So If you need help, shameless plug, send me a message. And or losing about 0.5 centimeter to 1 centimeter per week off your waist, and or very specific measurements that we want to see with women. So sometimes women will have a really small, tiny waist naturally, but they just store all their fat around their hips and thighs and chest. If that was the case and your small waist didn't go down, but you lost 4 centimeters off your hips, fantastic, right? Keep going, don't change anything. But on average, 0.5 centimeter to 1 centimeter per week off your waist measurement, 0.5 kilo to 1 kilo per week, or 0.5 to 1% of your body weight per week. If you're not on average getting those numbers over the course of a month, you can do better. Plain and simple. You are just probably losing fat too slowly. And I am much more of the opinion that faster fat loss is always better than slow fat loss, weight loss, right? And a lot of the research that we have, even though people don't necessarily like the idea of like crash dieting, etc., but the faster somebody loses the weight, the more likely they are to keep most of that weight off, or at least more of that weight off, and they lose more total weight compared to a slower diet. And this is part of the reason why I have so much success within my programs. Now, in the next couple of videos, we can talk about setting up dieting phases. So how long should you be dieting for? That depends on where your waist target is, what you've got coming up in the social occasions, holidays, etc. So that's another topic for another time. But you can lose weight fast, especially if you have quite a lot of weight to lose. And a general recommendation, which I'll just sort of finish up my thought process with this video, is for men, just a starting point. Instead of focusing on, I need to lose 10 kilos, start thinking about how small do I need to get? We need you to be, or at least for a male, you need to get your waist circumference around down to 50% of your height. This is a minimum non-negotiable. Right? If you aren't there, you need to diet, you need to lose weight. If you are a female, you're taking your small waist, so just above the hips, just below the ribs. We want this to be 47% of your height. This is the minimum standard expectation for all my clients. Even if I work with someone for only 3 months and then they finish the program and they want to do it by themselves thereafter, my expectation of that client is you need to keep going until you hit this number, because we know that the larger your waist gets, the more at risk you are of the nasty stuff. Diabetes, cardiovascular disease, various cancers, just all the potential stuff that is very easily treatable just by dieting for a couple of months, getting you down to a healthy body fat, can be done just by getting your waist down to a certain number. All right. I'll talk more about waist targets in the future. I'm going to talk about that right now. But that's where I would start. You can lose weight fast. Meats, veggies, and fruits most of the time. Make it fit your calories. Be super accurate with it. If you are not losing the expected weight that you should be, either calories need to come down further, it needs to be militant, accurate precision tracking, and or activity should go up, or both. Cool. If you have any questions, please pop them in the comments below. If you need help one-to-one, this is what I do for a living. I work with people worldwide, all over the world. And we, on average, my clients lose about 6 to 12 kilos in 3 months. Minimum, right? Minimum on the lower side. But any questions, comment below. Let's see if we can keep this streak going, daily videos, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Take care.